Um, I came from this word not too long ago, but I want to come at a different angle on today. The Grace Center members probably hear me preach this word maybe a year ago or so. I taught on this word, but I'm going to try to come at a different angle on today. All right, if you have your word, turn with me to the book of Mark. We're going to look at Mark chapter 4, verses 35 through 41. Mark chapter 4, verses 35 through 41. Very very familiar word. It's not a strange word for many. Very, very familiar. All right, Mark 4, verses 35 through 41. It reads as follows. It says, "And the same day when the even was come, he saith unto them, Let us pass over unto the other side. And when they had sent away the multitude, they took him even as he was in the ship, and there were also with him other little ships. And there arose a great storm of wind, and the waves beat into the ship so that it was now full. And he was in the hinder part of the ship asleep on a pillow. And they awake him and say unto him, Master, carest thou that not that we perish? And he arose and rebuked the wind and said unto the sea, Peace, be still. And the wind ceased, and there was a great calm. And he said unto them, Why are ye so fearful? How is it that ye have no faith? And they feared exceedingly, and said one to another, What manner of man is this, that even the wind and the sea obey him?" Amen. If you're taking notes on today, I am coming from the topic, you're going to get over it. You're going to get over it. Years ago, when my wife and I and our daughter and my in-laws and cousins and so forth, we were coming back from the state of Virginia, going back to North Carolina. And as we were going back, it was Christmas Eve. This was years ago. And, you know, what we would sometimes do, our tradition was that we would go and do some late Christmas Eve shopping. I know many of you are like, Pastor, and that's almost suicide right there. You going on Christmas Eve doing Christmas shopping? Well, it was just that we was getting some of the smaller things and just being out in the crowd and so forth, just, enjoying family and just having our family tradition that we normally do every year. Just doing some late minute Christmas Eve shopping. But on our way home from Virginia to North Carolina, as we were crossing this bridge, I believe it was the James River Bridge. It's a long, long bridge. And as we were crossing the bridge, when we first got on the bridge, we noticed that the lights and so forth, even the radio, it started to go on and off, and the lights started to flicker on and off as soon as we got on the bridge. It didn't happen like, miles away as we was headed toward the bridge. But as soon as we got on the bridge, the radio started to go on and off. The lights began to flicker back and forth. And when we got in the middle of the bridge, that's when all of the lights went out on the car. Lights went out, radio went out, and here we are on this long bridge trying to make it back home on Christmas Eve, and yet the lights and the radio and everything just dies on us. Here we are with Christmas gifts in in the van, and you know, we had a good time on Christmas Eve shopping and so forth. And our plan was to make it back home. We did not anticipate anything happening, any, a difficulty with the van breaking down. But yet, in the middle of the bridge, and we're slowly trying to make our way across, the lights went out, everything just died on us. Now the good thing and the fortunate thing is that we made it across the other side of the bridge. We made it across. We pretty much sailed across the bridge, and we made it to a gas station where we had to park the car there, or park the van there overnight. And the next morning, my wife's uncles and father-in-law, they had to go back out there, get it fixed and so forth. Because what happened is that the alternator died on the van. It didn't die before we got on the bridge, but it died in the middle of the bridge. And somehow, some way, we were still able to sail across to the other side and get to safety. Oh, what a tragedy it would have been if we would have broken down on the James River Bridge. If you're from the Virginia area or that North Carolina area, you know about the James River Bridge and how far it is. You can Google it yourself. It's a long, long bridge. But thank God we were able to make it to the other side. See, here in the text is an interesting story of how when Jesus told his disciples that he would meet them on the other side. He gave them a promise that if you start from here, you're going to get here. So don't worry about what happens in between. I just need for you to start here, and it's guaranteed that you're going to make it over here. And I love the fact that verse 35, Jesus, he tells his disciples, he says, let us pass over onto the other side. The disciples, they had sent the multitude away. They most likely sent them away to give Jesus some rest, because he had been teaching the multitude and the people earlier in the day. And sometimes when we read the Bible Grace Center, we sometimes forget the human side of Jesus. You know, we sometimes forget that he had a human side to him throughout his earthly ministry. We see all of the miracles that he performed, and we forget that sometimes he got hungry. We forget that sometimes he was thirsty. And we forget that sometimes he sometimes even got tired. All right? So here in the text, the disciples, they sent the people away. And then Jesus tells them, he says, let us go over to the other side. The disciples are headed to the other side. So they have a word from Jesus telling them that they're going, watch this, to the other side. Let me say that again. They got a word from Jesus that when Jesus said, let us go over to the other side, the disciples sent the people away, but they had a word from Jesus. After all, they can trust him, right? They can trust Jesus, right? I believe they can, because up until this point, they seen him cast out demons. At this point, they seen him heal the man with the withered hand. At this point, they seen him heal a leper. At this point, they see him heal many people with various diseases. And of all the people that they can trust, surely they can trust Jesus. So they began to cross the Sea of Galilee, and they start their journey to the other side. The Sea of Galilee is about 13 miles long and it's about 8 miles wide. Where the sea is located, theologians say it's located between, large mountains and hills and so forth. And if a strong wind came, by them being in between, hills and mountains and so forth, it would create this tunnel effect of the wind just kind of going in and being in the midst of these large hills and mountains, and the wind would create this tunnel effect if anyone was in the middle of those large mountains and hills. But this was a day when they leave in the evening, and all was well when they left in the evening time. In other words, when they set sail, they were not expecting a storm to come their way. In other words, watch this. It was a nice, pleasant, and a beautiful day. Can you even picture in your mind what may have been taking place? You could probably hear the flaps of the wings of birds as they're flying in the sky. You can probably even imagine the disciples probably cracking jokes and laughing and just having a good time as they were sailing across the Sea of Galilee. Grace Center, this was the calm before the storm. The calm before the storm. The next thing what happens in this story that we see is that the unexpected happens. Something that they were not prepared for. Has something ever happened to you that you were not even prepared for yourself? I know it's happened to us. But can you think of something that may have happened to you and you were not even prepared for it? Things that you did not plan for? Some kind of appliance in the home, it breaks down and you did not prepare, have money set aside to fix it. Or maybe a family member or you yourself may have received a bad report from the doctor and you were not prepared to hear that news. After all, you're not expecting the bad. You're expecting good, but all of a sudden, bad news, it comes knocking at your door. You're expecting the good to happen. You're not expecting bad things when you wake up in the morning time. But sometimes, all of a sudden, out of the blue, things that you did not plan for, it will hit you just like that. Verse 37 here in the text, Grace Center, it lets us know that all of a sudden, a great storm arose. A great storm arose. Let's read the text. Verse number 37 here, it says, "And there arose a great storm of wind, and the waves beat into the ship, so that it was now full." This tells us that this was no ordinary storm. But yet this, Grace Center, this was a great storm. You see, there is a difference between a regular storm and a great storm. There is a huge difference between a regular storm and a great storm. You see, a regular storm is when you may have a headache or a stomach ache. That's a regular storm. But a great storm is when you have been diagnosed with with COVID or cancer. That can be a great storm. A regular storm is when your child decides every once in a while that they may want to skip school. That's a regular storm. But a great storm is when your child, the one you love, something may have happened to them and you haven't seen them for weeks, or maybe even months, or maybe even years. That's a great storm. A regular storm is when your child sometimes may become rebellious and they don't want to even clean their room or even take out the trash. But the great storm is when your child tells you that they no longer believe in all this Jesus and God stuff. That's a great storm. And since I've been living Grace Center, there's a thing or two that I have learned while being here on this earth. And that is this, is that great people run into great storms because they have a great promise. Oh, that was so nice. Let me say that twice. Great people, those who have a calling on their lives that God has touched in a special way. Great people run into great storms when they have a great promise. I don't think you hear me. Let me say that 3 times for your mind. Great people run into great storms when they have a great promise. Or if you got a word over your life, you're going to have some storms. It is what it is. All right? If God has spoken and given you a vision, given you a dream, if he has touched you in a special way, and you have a calling and an anointing on your life, be prepared for some great storms. If you have a great promise, you can be rest assured that you're going to run into a great storm. Anyone that has ever accomplished anything in their lives have run into some great storms. And if you don't believe me, just ask any successful person. How did they get to where they're at today? Oh, just sit down, be prepared to hear some stories. Oh yeah, just get some tea, cross your legs, and just listen to some great stories that you're going to hear from some successful people. People who have promises on their lives are going to run into some great storms. Successful people, most of them will tell you that in the beginning they probably heard more no's than they did yeses. They probably had more failures than they had success. Think of it this way. Think of a small child. Now, I'm not the brightest bulb in the room. I'm not the smartest person in the room. But something I've never seen, Grace Center, I've never seen a pregnant woman give birth to a child and the baby comes running out of the womb. I've never seen that. Never seen it. Maybe you have. I've never seen it. If you've seen that, please show me some video. I've never seen it. I've never seen a pregnant woman give birth and the child just comes running out of the womb. I've never seen it. I've never seen that in my entire life. What I have seen is this. I have seen a woman give birth. They will nurture that child. After a period of time, that baby will begin to roll back and forth on their own, begin to try to lift up their head, as the months go on. And as time go on, they will begin to crawl, right? And as time go on, they'll begin to walk. And even as they're beginning to walk, they'll sometimes fall as they're trying to catch their balance, as they're trying to understand this new thing called walking to them. They're trying to get it together so that they can walk like everybody else is walking. Okay? But after a certain amount of time, they get familiar with walking. And then what do? Oh, they take off run. You can't catch them little jokers after a while. They begin to run all over the place. But, watch this. They did not come running out of the womb. They had to go through a process first. And even with small babies going through a process, they had to fall sometimes before they could walk. They had to fall sometimes before they could even run. You're going to have more failures in life than sometimes you will have success. But the failures is what gets you stronger. And by you falling down sometimes and by you getting up and trying it again will allow you to take off and one day run. I like that right there. I've learned that if you're doing anything for God, Grace Center, you are a threat to Satan's kingdom. If you're doing anything for God, you're a threat to Satan's kingdom. The devil doesn't like you. He's not your friend. He's not your boy. Okay, he's not your buddy. As a matter of fact, if and I said this before with the Grace Center, if you were drowning in quicksand, he'll walk right on by you, pat you on your head, and continue to go. He will not reach out to you and give you a lifeline. No, Satan does not care anything about you. Satan is not going to sing you a lullaby to put you to bed at night. His main goal is to destroy you and everything that you stand for. He wants to break up your marriage. He wants you to live paycheck to paycheck. So you can't, give to others and tie to your local church and so forth. He wants you depressed. He wants you stressed. He wants to rob you of your self-worth and who you are and your identity in Christ. The devil does not like you. And you know what? I'm cool with that. Because I don't like him either. I don't care if he likes me or not. Remember back in the day in school, when you was kids in school and the boy would write the girl a note or the girl would write the boy a note, and they'll write do you like me, yes or no, and you had to check off one of the boxes. You were sweating bullets because you didn't want that no check box to come back to you. Do you like me, yes or no? You was like, okay, please check yes, please check yes. If you check no, just throw it in the trash. I don't need all that. I don't need all that stress in my life right now. But you would write them a note saying, do you like me, yes or no? And if you got a yes back, it was a great day. It was a great day if you got a yes back. If you got a no, you were sad for the rest of the day. You wanted to crawl into a pillow and just cry and be depressed for the rest of the day. But you wanted them to say yes as you wrote them the note. You see, I wish Satan would write me a note asking me, do I like him? Yes or no. It would not be a yes, I can tell you that right now. It would definitely, categorically be, 100% be no. No, I don't like you. Besides, I'm already taken. So I'm sorry. I'm already taken, Satan. I don't like you. I don't like anything about you. I don't like what you stand for. I don't like what you do. I don't like your reputation. I cannot stand your guts saying no. I do not like you. I have somebody else in my life right now. Okay. You see, the one that I'm with, the one that I'm with, he loves me. The one I'm with, he looks out for my best interests. The one I'm with, he picks me up when I fall. The one I'm with, he is trustworthy. The one that I am with, he is kind. The one that I am with is sincere. The one that I am with is faithful. That's the one that I am with. The one that makes ways and makes miracles and does this for me and provide and make provision. That's the one that I'm with. So Satan, do I like you? Yes or no? No, I don't care anything about you. These disciples here at Grace Center, they're in this storm. They're in this great storm. Now, old school preachers would say it like this. There are 3 types of storms that people face. It's the storm that you just got out of, the storm that you're in, or the storm that you're headed to. 3 types of storms. The storm that you just got out of, the storm that you're in, or the storm that you're headed to. These disciples are in this boat, and they're in this storm, and they begin to panic. The storm is pushing the boat back and forth and back. And some of the disciples, watch this, some of these disciples are fishermen. So they're used to being out on the sea. The disciples, some of them are fishermen, so they are used to being in control. They're used to making the first and the last decision. They're used to planning their own trips. But you also have people like that today. They're used to being in control. They have titles on their job. They have titles in the church. They have titles at home. And they're used to being in control. They try to figure out how they're going to resolve their own issues. They try to solve their own problems, not knowing that the longer they try to figure it out for themselves, the quicker they'll drown. They pace the floor every night about to have a nervous breakdown about how they're going to get out of this situation. They say, before this problem drowns me, I just drown myself in alcohol. Before this issue drowned me, I'll just numb away the pain with drugs. Some even decide that life is not even worth living anymore, and they take their own lives. Why? Because at one point they were in control and they thought they had it all together until a great storm hit their lives. Here in the text, the wind is pushing the boat from side to side. In verse 37, it lets us know that all of a sudden the water, it begins to fill the boat. At first, the only thing that they had to deal with was the wind pushing the boat from side to side. You had the wind tossing the boat from side to side. But then, watch this, then the water begins to get inside of the boat. So it's okay to have water on the outside of the boat because that's where water belongs, on the outside of the boat. But it's bad when water gets inside of the boat. But here it doesn't seem like it's a little bit of water, Grace Center. Watch this, because this is a great storm. So this is just not a small amount of water that's getting inside of the boat. This is a great storm. All right. And watch this, since this is a great storm, the disciples cannot control the boat, neither can they control the water that's entering the boat. They can't control the boat. They can't control the water from entering the boat. It's almost like the wind had a conversation with the water to sink the boat. And sometimes it's just like life. Life is beating you and tossing you from left to right and pushing you forward and backward. And then water comes in to try to finish you off. That's just like life a lot of times. But there is good news, because if you read carefully, Grayson, if you read very, very carefully the word, although the water fills the boat, the word, it never said that the boat went under. Although water filled the boat, the word never tells us that the boat ever went under. You see, God has a way of keeping your head above water. Life is hitting you hard. Bills are hitting you hard. Your job is hitting you hard. Not having a job is hitting you hard. And it feels like you are about to drown. But watch this. You're good. It's no need to panic. Watch this. Because if you've placed your faith in Jesus, you have an advantage over the other boats that's in the sea. Oh, let me say that again. If you have faith in Jesus, you have an advantage than other boats in a similar situation that you may be facing. What's the advantage? Well, you have the captain of the ship on board. Oh, you have the captain right there with you, on board with you. So you don't have to worry about drowning when you have the captain on the boat with you. And watch this right here. Watch this. In the text here, somebody gets a bright idea. Watch this. And they remember that they have Jesus on the boat. They are panicking. They're worried. They're thinking that the boat is going to go under. And somebody gets the bright idea and say, hey, we got Jesus on the boat with us. He's the one that told us. Hey, he's the one that said, let us go over to the other side. So what happens? Well, they go, watch this, and they go and wake up Jesus, right? And they ask him, they say, do you even care that we perish? Do you even care that we even die? Here we are struggling up here to keep this boat afloat, and now you are back here asleep in the hinder part of the boat. You see, I don't understand some things here, Grace Center, because, the disciples were struggling in this great storm, trying to control the boat, trying to keep water outside of the boat. And they had the unmitigated gall and the audacity to accuse Jesus about if he even cared about what happens to them. In other words, they felt as though Jesus is asleep and don't even care about them. Have you ever felt that way? You're going through some things, you're struggling, trying to figure it out, trying to make ends meet, all of these different things, and you sometimes feel like God doesn't care. You sometimes feel like God is asleep. You're like, God, do you even care that I perish? Do you even care that I die? Do you even care what I'm going through? Jesus, where are you? God, where are you? I'm right here in this storm. Where are you at? The disciples, they go wake up Jesus and say, Jesus, do you even care that we perish? Jesus, he told them that they were going over to the other side. But here you have Jesus in the hinder part of the boat. Some say that in the hinder part of the boat, that's where the boat wouldn't have as much motion. And most likely Jesus was in this part of the boat so he could get some sleep from his teaching and so forth. Because like I said earlier, he was tired. The man was tired. He was trying to get some rest. All right. So he's in the hinder part of the ship trying to get some sleep. But watch this. The disciples, they go and they wake up Jesus. But when they go to Jesus, they're doing more than just going to Jesus. What they're really doing is they're going to the Word. Okay. It's more than them just going to Jesus, but they're going to the Word. You see, in John 1:1, it lets us know, it says that in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. Verse 14 says, and the Word was made flesh, talking about Jesus himself. You see, Grace Center, when the storms of life are raging, you have to go to the Word. If you're depressed, there's a word for depression. If you need to forgive, there's a word for forgiveness. If you have low self-esteem, there's a word for low self-esteem. If you are afraid, there is a word for being afraid. So the disciples, they needed Jesus. They go to Jesus, and in essence, they're going to the Word. Earlier in the chapter, Jesus was in the boat here, and he was teaching from the boat. In other words, he was using the boat as a pulpit. But now that the storm is raging, it's now time for him to use the boat that he was teaching from earlier and turn the boat into a pulpit. All right? Now he must also use the same boat into a platform. Okay, so the boat was a pulpit earlier, but now it's time for him to use it as a platform. So it's going from a pulpit to a platform. It's going from just me teaching you what to do, but now I'm going to show you, hey, what to do. In other words, I'm not just going to talk about it, but now I'm going to be about it. Watch this. Jesus rebukes the wind and then the sea. The sea, in and of itself, Grace Center, the sea cannot move unless something else causes it to move. In this case, it was the wind. The wind is what caused the sea to move. Stick with me. The sea just can't move on its own. It needs something else to make it move. In this particular case, the wind was causing the sea to move. You see, we serve a God that does things decent and in order. He had to speak to the wind first because it caused the sea to move. In other words, I love the fact that God got to the root of the problem. Yeah, he went straight to the root of the problem, and he spoke to the wind, told the wind, he said, peace, be still. Okay? He rebuked the wind, spoke to the sea, told it to be still. And when I taught from this before, I told the Grace Center that behind this storm, it was almost like Satan was behind this storm himself. All right? The amplified version of this, it says that he told the sea to hush and to muzzle it. Okay? The translation of muzzle is a term when you would cast out a devil or a demon. Okay? You would take possession out of something and cast out a demon of someone. So this tells us that this storm that the disciples were in, it was sent by the enemy. Go study it for yourself. See, I love the word. This great storm that the disciples were in, it was caused by Satan. But earlier, Jesus told them, he said, let us go over to the other side. Do you think Jesus knew what was going to take place before it took place? Do you think Jesus knew what was going to happen down the road? Why would Jesus even go to sleep in the hinder part of the ship when he knew a storm was coming and Satan was behind it? Do you even think that God already knows what you are about to go through? Do you even think that God understands what you're going through right now? Do you even think that God can do something about your situation? Jesus, he goes out there and he calms the storm. Everything is lovely and great afterwards. But Jesus, he then looks at his disciples and he says, why are you so fearful? How is it that you have no faith? He didn't even say, why you have such little faith. He said, you have no faith. Interesting. You have no faith. In other words, where is your trust? Where is your confidence? Didn't I tell you that you were going over to the other side? Didn't I tell you that I was going to take care of you? God is saying, I have made you a promise and I have no intention of breaking it. That's a word for somebody. God is saying, I've made you a promise. I have no intention of breaking my promise. Things may switch up along the way, but the promise still stands. You may not get there the way you think you're going to get there, but the promise still stands. You may not get there in the time frame that you think you need to get there, but the promise, it still stands. I'm closing now. See, Grace Center, I started off the sermon today talking about how when we were crossing over the James River Bridge and headed back home during Christmas Eve years ago, I told you how the lights began to flicker on the van and the radio were going out as soon as we got onto the bridge. And eventually, when we got onto the bridge, the lights went completely off. What I didn't tell you was that there was a car beside us, and I didn't see this myself. I think my wife told me or somebody else told me this afterwards. But they said it was a car beside us. Evidently, they saw what was happening to our van, and they rode beside us the entire time till we crossed over the bridge. Because what they were trying to do, they were trying to give us some light from their vehicle as we were crossing over to the other side of the bridge. In other words, they were giving us light and we were trying to make it over to the other side. You see, Grace Center, I don't know what you're going through, but you're going to get over it. Whatever your it is, you're going to get over it. Because right now, I believe that God has a light that is shining on you to get you to where you're supposed to get to. know it seems like things are not working out the way you think it should. And you may be facing a great storm in your lives right now. But there is a light that is leading you, that is guiding you, that is helping you get to the other side. When you think you cannot make it to the other side, there is a light that is shining upon you and your family to get you to the promise and the destination and the place that he has for you. There is a light that is on you right now. His name is Jesus. We call him the light of the world. Jesus made a promise to his disciples, to his followers. He said, let us go over onto the other side. Jesus didn't just say, you guys go over to the other side. He said, let us. In other words, he was including himself. You're going to get to the other side of where you need to get to, but you're not going to get there alone. You're not going to get there by yourself. Jesus is with you the entire time. He has his light shining on you. So when you think you cannot make it, and it seems like you're stuck in the middle of your own bridge, and you're like, how am I going to get to the other side? How am I going to make it out of this situation? He's saying, remember the promise. Remember the calling. Remember my word. Let us get to the other side. Don't panic. Don't worry. I've got you. You're going to get over it. Whatever your it is, I can guarantee you this. You are going to get over it.